Folks, keep in mind that when you're dealing with a trainee, minimum, you're dealing with a year of training before they can become licensed or certified.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Welcome back to the Appraiser Coach Podcast. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast here. Had a great question come in from Jeff, and I want to read to you that question in just a little bit and give you an answer. First, I want to pause and remind you that we are sponsored by ANow Software. ANow is Appraisers Now. It's your ability to keep track of every little thing and every person in your appraisal business. And even if you're a single person entity, it will do wonders for you. ANow.com is where you go, ANOW.com. All right, folks, had a great question come in from Jeff. Jeff, thank you for jumping on the Appraiser Coach Podcast link, and specifically our contact link, and came out and basically said, hey, Dustin, do you have any blogs on how to determine what you pay a trainee? Great question. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if I've got any blogs, but I definitely want to address it here. By the way, whenever you send a message to theappraisercoach.com, I answer those things pretty much immediately. I would say within 24, 48 hours at the max. I usually have at least a brief answer for you. And if it's a question that I feel is best addressed to multiple people, then I often will take that question. And with your permission, I will share that on the air. If I don't have your permission, such as in this case, I will just call you by your first name and not reveal who brought in the question. But I think it's a great question. And I want to address it in a little bit longer format than I was able to in the email. It's actually a question that I get pretty frequently when I'm doing coaching, specifically when we're talking human resources, we're talking about hiring, we're talking about trainees, and we're talking about how and what you do with those individuals. First of all, do you need a trainee? This is one of the biggest myths and one of the biggest mistakes, frankly, that I see appraisers make is as soon as they feel like they are at capacity or beyond, meaning I just can't keep up anymore. I can't continue to work these 10 to 12-hour days. I can't continue to ignore my family on the weekends. I've got to have help. And by help, they immediately go to this thought process of, I need a trainee. That's the first step for some reason. Folks, that should be your last step. Okay, trust me on this. Trainee should not be the first thing that you think about when you need help. There are so many other ways, and let's just face it, less expensive ways, both in time and money, which, when you're self-employed, that's really the same thing, than going directly to a trainee. So please think through that first. Virtual assistants, receptionists, secretaries, data entry people, research analysts. So many people can be hired before you get to trainee. Now, I don't want to go into a lot of detail on that because that's really not the topic today. I want to directly address Jeff's question. And the question again is, do you have any blogs on how to determine what you pay a trainee? Well, Jeff, I don't have any blogs that I can remember on that particular subject. By the way, I have hundreds of blogs out there. So it's very, very good chance that I've written or said something on it in the past. I know that I definitely have talked about this in my courses, the Go Create Some Value workshop and the Go Remodel Your Appraisal Office workshop. And I've addressed it on multiple webinars with my all-star team. But I want to address your question directly, Jeff, but I first want to pause and remind my listeners that if you want to keep track of everything that goes on in your appraisal office, including your trainees, and find out what they're doing and how well they're doing it. One of the great things about ANow is it allows you to be able to, those stupid report cards that you absolutely hate from AMCs, right? And you've heard me say in the past, they keep track of you whether you know it or not. People get upset that they sent me a report card and they told me how well I'm doing or how not well I'm doing. Can't believe they do that. And I'm thinking, well, at least they shared it with you. I mean, guaranteed any company of any strength is going to be keeping that information anyway. Well, how would you like to keep that same type of information? And it could be completely confidential, or you can share it with others in your own office. ANow allows you to be able to keep track of your appraiser. So in my case, I'm able to see how much Terry is doing, how much Lee is doing, how much Scott is doing, how fast they are. Again, I don't share this with them, but I can see that so-and-so might be a little bit faster on the turn time than another individual. And that helps me to make business decisions. That's the great thing about ANow software. It allows you to be able to make business decisions quickly and without a whole lot of data manipulation. You can simply look at the numbers and make decisions accordingly. That's ANow software. It's ANOW.com. We're back. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast chair. We're talking today about a question that came in from Jeff. And the question had to do with how do you pay trainees? Now, I started out the program by talking about, and I just want to emphasize this, folks, your first stop when you need help should not be the trainee route. Now, there are certain circumstances where that needs to be your first stop, but I would say when I am coaching one-on-one with an individual or when I'm in my mastermind groups, that is a rarity. Typically, there are other ways, less expensive ways to solve the problem than jumping straight to the trainee route. Folks, keep in mind that when you're dealing with a trainee, minimum, you're dealing with a year of training before they can become licensed or certified. And most often it's longer than that. And I don't care what the regulations are in your state. It takes a while to get someone to the point that you can trust them fully to go out and represent you, whether that be on inspections or whether that be in choosing comparables, making adjustments, and on and on and on. It takes a while to get there. And you need to keep that in mind. And so to answer Jeff's question, I always start my trainees out very low and work them up. Now, this is a key. In rare situations, I might break this rule. I'm doing it right now with one individual that's in my office. Okay, and there's a reason for that, which I won't go into right now. But it is a rarity that I break this next rule. I don't pay trainees a commission. Now, there's a reason for that. First of all, it is principle-based. Number one, they are in training. Remember, they are a trainee, thus they are training, okay? They are not at a professional level to be paid commission, in my opinion. Now, again, there are rare circumstances where that is not the case. I will give you a hint, okay? One of them has to do with experience. Some individuals come very experienced even though they may not have their license yet. But it is a rarity that I will break that rule. I don't pay trainees except by the hour, and I start them out fairly low. We're talking $10, $12 an hour. In fact, I know of appraisers that have started trainees out at nothing. They got paid nothing. Why? Because they looked at it as an education, as a tuition. They were getting a career, right? I feel differently because I want them to be with me long term. And so I treat them well up front. No, by the way, I know of individuals that actually have required their trainees to pay them because they were looking at it as tuition. Nothing wrong with that. That's a business decision. I applaud it. It's not something I have done in my own office, but I start out fairly low and basically say, listen, I'm giving of my time and my energy, and I am taking away, there's an opportunity cost. I'm taking away from what I could be doing over here to help you over there. And while I do that, I'm not going to pay you well. And frankly, if you don't have a second job or some type of a stipend from a rich uncle, you may not make it. And that's not my problem. You want to be an appraiser, you got to figure out how to make this work. So I will pay them a low per hour and build up from there. As they continue to give me more value, I increase their dollars per hour. Okay, as they continue to give me more value, I will increase their dollars per hour. Now, by the way, I don't ever, that I can remember in the history of ever doing this, did I ever get over $20 an hour for a trainee. That was the top end, and that was after many months of being with me, and that was after many months of providing value to me. Now, when do I start paying commission? When they become licensed or certified. At that point, they also accept some liability for the things that they do. At that point, they can sign the left side. That's important. And when I say the left side, that means without me signing the right side. That's important. They're taking on liability, they're taking on their shoulders, and they are becoming a professional. And at that point, I believe they need to be paid as a professional, which would be a working wage, which would be a commission. By the way, another helpful hint as we close out today, I would encourage you to have 2 contracts, or at least have one contract that has now and later. Now, what do I mean by that? Simply this. I want my trainees to know what they are working toward. I want them to be encouraged. I want them to have a goal in mind. Can you imagine starting a race and saying, here, run this race? Well, how long is it going to be? I don't know. However long you want it. What route are we supposed to take? It's up to you. You can take any route you want. Well, how do I know when I'm finished? I guess you're finished when you're finished. Well, what do I get if I win the race? I don't know. Whatever. What kind of race is that, right? There has to be clearly defined boundaries. There has to be clearly defined routes. There has to be clearly defined start and finish. And there has to be a clearly defined winner and reward, a trophy, if you will, a medal at the end. That's what encourages people to move forward. I think it is no different with your employees. Hey, here's what I'm going to do for you. Here's what I expect you to do for me. I'm going to pay you hourly. As you increase your value, I'm going to increase your dollars per hour. You're never going to get above $20 an hour, but once you get licensed and certified, I'm going to pay you a commission, and this is what I think it's going to look like. And I put that in writing. I do not sign it. I put that in writing. Okay, what I'm saying is this. I love the 2-contract rule. Here's your training contract. I'm going to sign it. You're going to sign it. This is going to be a black and white, very defined legal contract. When you get licensed, here is what I believe. It is subject to change, yes. but probably on a minor basis, not a major basis. But here is what I anticipate will be your contract when you get licensed. That way they know what they're working on now, what they can expect to be paid in 2 weeks, and what they can expect down the road. That's it. Thank you for the question, Jeff. I really appreciate you writing in. Folks, you can always write at theappraisercoach.com. Reach out to me like Jeff did. Ask your questions. I would be thrilled. And by the way, you don't have to wait to the podcast to get your answer. If you have something that's urgent, I will get back to you. I promise. And then we'll just expand a little bit in the podcast. If you enjoyed this helpful tip and you want other tips, tricks, hacks, if you will, to running a more successful appraisal business, we are in the middle right now of a 3-part series. It's interactive. It's every month. And it's at theappraisercoach.com in the All-Star team. If you are not a member of the All-Star team, I highly recommend that you belong. You can go back and listen to any of the past episodes of our monthly meeting with the coach and get all kinds of helpful tips and tricks. But right now we're in the middle of a 3-part series talking about hacks, tips, tricks to a more efficient and more effective appraisal business. Hope you'll join us. Thanks for joining me today. Catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
I don't pay trainees by the, editor. Boy, this is going to be a good one. And without a whole lot of analyzing. Sorry, editor, let's back up. And I need to let my kitty cat out. Hi, kitty cat. Bye. All right. We're back.